Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Geek podcast, where we celebrate geek, nerd, and pop culture. Each week, we deliver the best analysis for fans, by fans, on anything related to movies, TV, video games, comics, anime, and manga. We talk geek. And now, here's the Get Geek podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new exciting episode of the Geek. I got to start it again. Just keep going. Yeah, keep rolling. Keep on. That was a tongue twister there. I don't know what happened.
Setting up to
Keep it. All right. Guys, I'm going to make it simple. This is the Get Geek podcast, guys. Hi, how are you guys doing? What is going on with me today? Hi.
I think it's the
you know what it is? Yeah, exactly. I think AJ is completely 100% right. I think the reason why I'm screwing up so badly is the topic that we have this morning.
Is it a glitch? Is it a glitch in the wall?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a glitch. You know what I'm saying?
There's a glitch in the wall tricks.
We are going to be talking the Matrix Resurrection. And what exactly happened to that film? That's our topic for today. But before we get into that, I just want to say hi. I am your host, Walt, and I am joined here by our Get Geekers at large. We've got Jose, Gabe, and AJ.
What's up?
Eli is off today because, well, he's got homework. So
he's literally on assignment.
Yeah, he is. So just before we start, please, guys, remember to rate, review, and subscribe to this wonderful little podcast that you guys listen to. And please make sure to tell all your friends. Glitch in the Matrix, glitch in Walt. That's what we're talking about. Because, boy, was that movie glitchy, right, guys?
Glitch in the Matrix.
It was.
Where do we even
I thought it had a computer virus. What are you talking about?
So clearly, as you guys realize, we're talking about the Matrix Resurrections, and we're gonna obviously, I think that we've already touched on this in the last episode. We already know what AJ really thinks about the film and certain scenes and stuff like that. So you're gonna hear us rant about it, hear us kind of complain a lot about it, but we're also just trying to break down what went wrong. We want to know exactly what we think, at least from our perspective, what we think went wrong with the film, and even from some perspectives, what went right with the film. And I think I might surprise you guys with what I think went right with the film. But why don't we go ahead and just discuss? What do you guys think as far as, like, if you guys can pinpoint? Why don't we start off like this? If you guys can pinpoint one thing, just one thing, okay, of the many that you think. What was like the worst scene or the worst moment of the film for you? And again, I want to start with AJ if we can. I want to start with AJ. I know that we already went with the whole like Walking Dead zombie apocalypse, kamikaze off the building jumping scene, which totally didn't make any sense. But do you have any other moments that you absolutely hated and despised? And oh man, I'm using way too many adjectives.
Well, again, I really can't just get away from that whole kamikaze scene. Like, it's really hard. That was like so terrible and tasteless, in my opinion, that I just have to simply say that it was tasteless and terrible. But even aside from that, because we're going to do something that's not that, I think the way they tossed the Merovingian and those fringe dudes to the side was pretty terrible also.
Cringe.
Yeah,
horny.
I would have thought if anyone were to thrive in like this new world order, it'd be him. But like, nah, he's just a ruffian hobo.
Yeah, because he's the master of secrets, master of information, and everybody's on social media. I mean, that is perfect for him, right?
Yeah.
So,
I want to touch on that a little bit later, actually. I feel like the Merovingian represents a certain aspect of the film, and I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that.
Didn't he say he survived like 6 prior iterations of the Matrix, and like this is the one that does him in, the one with like TikTok and like
Yeah.
like MySpace and whatever. Like that's actually a little shameful. I agree with AJ on that one. It's like he wasn't my favorite character, and he was a little bit like of obviously a silly ranter in the previous movies from at times. But he had
That's
potential.
What made him so good, though.
He had potential. Like AJ said. I think
I thought he was great. He was one of my favorite parts of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, he was good. Like I said, he had moments for me where it got a little silly, but like I thought that there was great potential here, and I agree with AJ. There's some lost potential in that character.
Jose.
All right,
moments.
Yeah, I'll let Jose.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've been sipping my coffee suggestively, like Kermit the Frog, for a few seconds to kind of indicate that I wanted to throw some salt on this movie. So unfortunately, I'm really sad that I have to say this, but like my least favorite scene in the movie is the big finale with Neil Patrick Harris. And the reason that I'm upset that I have to say that is because I love Neil Patrick Harris. He's friggin' awesome. He's funny. He's a good actor. He just, I don't think, was really suited for this particular role. And like the reason kind of why, among many reasons why I could probably cite that I didn't like that scene was, I mean, that moment is pretty simple to cite, where he's like, oh, I'm using this technique that you invented against you now, bullet time. Bullet time is like my weapon to stop you. And like slowing down time, it was like some weird like Dragon Ball Super like hit logic that allowed him to use this. And like it doesn't make sense in the first place if you think about it, because it's not like Matrix, or excuse me, it's not like Neo invented bullet time. Bullet time was the filming technique used to show how fast he was going, and that he could dodge bullets. It wasn't that he was actually slowing down time or manipulating time. So I found it to be even more contrived and silly because of that. The whole speech I thought was kind of silly, but like we can get into that in more detail after. I guess I'll let Walt kind of maybe name your scene that was one of your least favorites.
Well, scene. You want just one scene? Because
we're doing one scene.
One scene or one thing.
One
scene or one thing.
For now,
a moment in the film.
That's how we're starting.
One thing I can do, because there is so many things that went wrong with this film.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, and we were watching a video right before we started recording. There was an implication by the author of that video that the film was actively trolling itself and was bad on purpose, and we can get into that a little bit later. But one of the things that they did, one of the things that I saw, in the honest trailer version of this thing, was the fact that Neo is not the fighter that he was in the previous movies, and that to me is kind of a shame, because you literally have John Wick there, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about it,
alive, right?
Right, exactly. And the thing about it, in the first Matrix, he wasn't as an accomplished action star, and yet he found a way to make the scenes work. And you can tell, because you know what, the fight scenes were kind of a little bit wonky when it came to Keanu Reeves. But you know what? In the interim, I believe he's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu right now, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, he's up there, but he's been training jiu-jitsu for a long time, so he has
right. And you see,
expertise.
Yeah, and you see a lot of the action scenes that he does in John Wick, so he's fully capable of doing it.
Yeah, I've even seen
glimpses of it.
Recent behind the scenes stuff of John Wick 4 like filming, where he's still moving really, really well.
Exactly, and so you saw glimpses of it in the film, but then at the very end we go to the whole force push type of thing, which kind of, listen, it's not his best look in doing it, you know what I'm saying? And it's a shame that we've relegated Neo to being a force pusher, and that's pretty much all he did, especially the back half of that film. So, that to me, again, is a wasted opportunity because you had so much potential to do some very interesting things in terms of fight choreography, and you chose not to.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to see like Ultra
I think
Instinct
that there's
Neo
a
or
reason
something
for
like
it. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's reasons for it that we may never really truly understand. And I think we're going to get
that's
into
the
that in
whole
a
film.
moment. Yeah, that's the whole film, right? And that's kind of the whole thing.
Well, Wolfie, Wolfie, can I ask you actually, as someone who is, involved in martial arts and fighting and all that,
Yeah.
is there any reason that you could think of why they, let's say, dumb down the action in this movie?
Well, I mean, I think that the main reason that they dumbed down the action was it could be kind of like a metaphorical decision, I believe. And I want to get into this a little bit later, but I believe that Lana decided to kind of do this because his whole force push is from her perspective, Neo's force of love between him and Trinity, And that's not a joke. That's not a joke because
the binary
it's using the dyad, the matrix dyad, and I'll explain that in a second. When I go into everything. It'll explain because the thing is,
so it is like Dragon Ball Super. It's like that, that one character.
Because we haven't. You want to know why? Because we haven't decided which movie's worse.
That's true. I still go to Rise of Skywalker. I'm sorry, Rise of Skywalker. It was pretty bad. At least I could kind of watch this.
I think it's possible that while the Matrix Resurrections doesn't seem that watchable, I think when we discuss underlying things regarding the production, the making of the Matrix, and the whole nine, the reason why it's even been made, maybe it can get a little bit of a pass as opposed to Rise of Skywalker. But I don't want to say my most hated scene, but the scene that I want to see the least, the scene that I want to skip over the most, is the montage. In screenwriting, it's called the Fun and Games Montage. The montage of them deciding what they're gonna do for this new sequel, and you just see this montage of a bunch of young hip, all these guys congregating in a Google headquarters style conference room, so to speak, and they're just throwing off ideas. That scene is so cringeworthy for me that I can't imagine wanting to see that scene at all at any point. I think that if you take that scene out, the Matrix Resurrections instantly bumps up 3 stars just with that scene out.
That whole scene felt to me like a long Super Bowl commercial or something, with White Rabbit,
my God.
Jefferson Airplane, which is a great song, playing over it, and then the wonky attempts at humor was almost commercial.
You're right. You're right about that. Except that at least with the Super Bowl commercial, you're getting something.
With the Super Bowl commercial, that's what you expect, though. You expect it to be in that kind of vein, right?
Yeah.
Not in this movie. Oof.
So going back to the film, the biggest question that I have is why did it get made? In the first place. And the reason I say that it's not that I thought that it shouldn't have gotten made, because I've been wanting a Matrix Resurrections, sequel for ages. I've even thought of how I would write a sequel, what things I would do in the sequel, and so on and so forth. But the main thing that I want to know is why it got made from Lana's perspective, not just from Warner Brothers' perspective, because I initially felt that after watching the movie, man, she obviously hated doing this movie. I don't know why she did it if she didn't want to do it. It turns out she did want to do this. She wanted to do this film because she looked at it as a self-therapy for the loss of her parents. I was under the impression that she was forced to do the movie. She didn't want to do the movie in the whole nine. That's not the case at all. She was on board to do the movie, and she felt that her parents died 5 weeks apart, and part of the grieving process was her looking at Neo and Trinity as a representation of her parents, and she wanted to do this film to help her grieve the loss of her parents. and essentially, in a way, I guess, like bring them back together in this Matrix world, and kind of like not accept that they're gone, so to speak. I mean, I'm not trying to put words in her mouth or anything, but it's just the way that it looks. Like, it's like, hey, I want to make this film because I want to bring, if Neo is my dad and Trinity's my mom, I need to find a way to bring them back together in some other realm. And
Not to
so
be insensitive,
understanding, yeah,
but
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
didn't need to see the therapy on film.
Exactly, and that's, I think, what's going on with like the whole therapy with the analysts and the whole nine. I don't necessarily understand it, but in a sense, it's kind of like, the way I look at it, they or she kind of got, it's like she got all the bad ideas out of the way, so then hopefully we can actually get a good Matrix in the future.
I don't think they're going to make another one. At least not
Yeah,
from,
maybe
at least not right off the bat.
I don't know.
See, here's my thing.
Maybe not right off the bat, but there's so much that's set up for a sequel.
There is, but like, I just have to say one thing. I kind of disagree with like the whole therapy on film being a bad thing. I think a lot of movies, I think most art actually is kind of like therapy put to a canvas. So I don't think that that's necessarily a problem.
I don't disagree with that, but I think it negatively affected this particular film.
It did negatively affect this particular film.
I'm not disagreeing with your statement.
I don't think it's just a therapy thing about it. And when you speak to Lana and Lily Wachowski years later after the first Matrix film, they'll both tell you that it was a little bit of therapy on film in regards to their identity when it comes to the Matrix films. And, there's this thing about how Switch was originally conceived as a character that would swap genders in and out of the Matrix, and the studios didn't allow that. And that's the thing, right? Because I haven't read this article, I haven't seen this, so that's kind of new context and new information for me. But from what you're saying, Wolfie, about how it was sort of therapy for Lana Wachowski, but it's still so patently obvious that it wasn't entirely made on her terms, right? This film, because Warner Brothers was attempting to, they had already rewritten scripts for over many years. They had actively been trying to make the fourth movie. They had repeatedly offered it to Lana and Lily. Lily completely said no. Lana said no multiple times before finally saying yes, I guess, for the reasons that you cited. But the other thing is, I wanted to bring up very quickly, even in it should have been like a harbinger of things to come, because I played the Matrix Awakens, right? You guys have heard of that, like Unreal Engine 5 game that's on like PS5 and Xbox Series X, right? It's just a tech demo basically, but there's like an open world. It's beautiful. It's awesome. It's really cool. It's like shows you what Unreal Engine 5 can do, and I'm excited about that for sure. But even in that tech demo, there are parts in the script, and they got Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss to do the voice acting even for the game, right? For this tech demo. And there's comments about how studios are the worst, and like the studio made us do this. And like Keanu Reeves' character Neo, they're in the car and he's like, I thought we had total control over this. And like there's so many meta comments, just like there are in the Matrix Resurrections, about the studio made us do it. The studio made us do it. The studios are ruining it. The studios are terrible. So like, I can definitely agree, and I would love to see more about what you were talking about, Lana's other motivations in regards to her parents and her grief. But like the studios are absolutely involved in forcing her at least to make it at this point, or like maybe sooner than she would have wanted to, like something there.
But the question is, like, how much of it is forced if they own the property, right? Like if you own the property, like you might not like the fact that I own the property for which if you as the creator, you might have you created the Matrix and the whole nine, but if you sold the rights to the property to me, a company that's beholden to their shareholders and has a mandate to use all their IPs, how much of it is it truly forced? I mean, I think that from a certain perspective, like Warner Brothers didn't have to get Lana or Lily on board at all. They could have just said, like, you know what, we own this, we're gonna do this without you.
That was marketing for
Um,
them, for Warner Brothers. That's the marketing angle because they're like, oh,
Matrix
we got
doesn't
one
need
of the
marketing.
original creators, but they're getting one of the
Yeah,
original
but like,
creators
but
back is
uh,
still a good way to sell it, you
it's
know?
it's a really big thing. Yes, absolutely. But like, they were so adamant on trying to get them involved, but they didn't need them involved. They
No,
didn't need to. They could have got. They
no, I
could if they
agree.
had gotten
I'm just
if
saying
they
it's
had gotten the
beneficial a
director from
little
the.
bit, a
It's
little bit. That's all.
beneficial, but it's not. It's. I don't think it's consequential. I think that Warner
No,
Brothers
no, no.
could
I
have
agree. Like I
done
said,
the. Yeah.
we don't have to like harp on that. Like it does help a little bit. I'm not saying that it's necessarily consequential. It's just slightly beneficial on the studio's part. That's all. That's it.
So
Doesn't go beyond that.
So anyway, so anyway, I just wanted to like finish my point real quick. It's just that
Right.
um my general point is that if your move is to put out a bad product, maybe don't put out the product at all. You know, it's the way that I look at
yeah,
it.
AJ, do
Well,
you think this was a deliberate attempt by Lana to make a bad product out of spite or out of any other reasoning? Like it almost seems that way,
Ye-
right?
Yeah, and that video that Walt mentioned earlier really kind of like I knew there were certain things that were indicative of her willingness to okay, I'm making this movie because Warner Brothers is kind of making me. Like just the whole thing with like the like one of the things that they pointed out in this video, I'm so sorry, I don't remember your name, guy. I wish I could give you creds. Um oh god, Bugs
Bugs.
Mhm.
Yes,
is the name of the
Bugs.
character.
Yeah.
In her introduction to Morpheus, she's like Bugs, like the bunny,
Mm-hmm.
aka symbolic Warner Brothers. And what is symbolic Warner Brothers trying to do throughout the entire movie? Quote unquote, resurrect Neo. Ah, you don't see the irony there.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about that.
And
That's
there's also another point that he made because he made the case that Bugs Bunny was like the Bugs. I'm sorry, not Bugs Bunny, but yeah, we can call it Bugs Bunny, whatever.
yeah,
But Bugs was supposedly the stand-in for WB, while Niobe was kind of like the Wachowskis in this moment. Because remember when she brought back Neo, you know, Bugs was all, you know, yay, we brought back Neo, and Niobe was like, that's a terrible thing to do. And so there are a lot of instances within the movie itself where you know you have the obvious right where he's sitting down and speaking to Agent Smith in his you know business meetings, right? Well, you know, Warner Brothers made us do this, you know, they were going to do it one way or another. But there's a lot of little instances within the film that are kind of like, you know, thrown about. And I don't know if this is, you know, kind of Monday morning quarterbacking this thing where you're looking at certain things and saying, well, you're now putting two and two together, you know, whether it makes sense or not. But, you know, a lot of the arguments that he was making is very, very compelling, you know. Um, like I said, there was the Bugs reference. Was there another one that I think there was another one that he made?
Well, the only other thing I can remember is those conference meetings.
Right, the conference meetings
ugh,
where they're going
ugh.
through it and stuff like that. But you know, even Agent Smith himself is kind of like an fu to kind of like the original Agent Smith because you know, and again, this goes back to the whole, you know, he's a very good actor, but if you look at some of the way he kind of treated Agent Smith, it is 180% different than the way Hugo Weaving treated the character, you know. And this version of Agent Smith is a little bit more what's the word? He's not as serious, you know, like
He's laid
Agent
back.
Smith in the very first trilogy had a very clear purpose. He wanted to destroy the Matrix here, you know. In this one, Agent Smith is kind of like an agent of chaos, right? And so
like Loki.
yeah, so you
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
it there are a lot of little things that kind of make you feel that Lana was not particularly happy in making this film.
I'll defend that a little bit and just say that it seemed that Jonathan Groff in playing Agent Smith, there was a moment of realization, right? He was also kind of brainwashed and he didn't know that he was Agent Smith. He didn't know he was in the Matrix
That's
again.
true.
It's a little bit flimsy, but like I thought his portrayal of Agent Smith was actually not bad. I didn't think that was
I did like him. I did like
him. The movie, you know. So, and like maybe it's just me. I really really enjoy Jonathan Groff though. I think he's a great actor. Mindhunter is one of my favorite shows. But yeah, you know, I mean, I thought he wasn't that bad. I don't know. Did anybody else have any other thoughts about Agent Smith or the characters? Like Wolfie, what did you think about how his portrayal kind of?
Well, all right. So my thing is, you know, for all the flaws that the original film had, I think that one thing that the original film did is that all the characters that they created, they did even if the characters themselves have flaws, they were so well performed and so well kind of designed. You know, going back to the Merovingian, where you don't necessarily, you know, like some of you think some of the things he says are silly, but he is a extremely indulgent character, indulgent in the way that he looks, the way that he dresses, and the things that he does, and the things that he says. They created that character in the most perfect, indulgent way. You know, Fishburne being, or Morpheus back then being the prophet, acted and played and looked the part all the way through. And I think the same thing with Smith. Smith was such a, you know, Smith is supposed to represent the opposite end of the spectrum to Neo, right? Rigid, super rigid, very structured. But the similarities between Neo and Smith are that they're both compelled to achieve their goals, you know, in some form or fashion, right? And I think that's what they still try to do that with some of the characters in Resurrections, but I just don't think that they do it as clean as they did in the original trilogy, right? Because Smith in this film is still the exact opposite of Neo, just on the same spectrum, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, where they're both characters that were brainwashed into believing that they were these, you know, normal human beings or whatever, and then they realize that no, we are actually, you know, enemies to some extent. Just in a way, they share in the fact that they no longer want to be controlled by the Matrix, even though they are essentially mortal enemies. So,
you know,
that's how I feel about the characters, you know, and the difference between the original trilogy and the sequel.
Well, the thing that's weird about, I guess, Smith's connection, now that you mention it, is that there are all these insinuations from Jonathan Groff in the movie as Agent Smith that there's still some deep connection between him and Neo, more from, you know, and Keanu Reeves' Neo character. But like there never is any real payoff in this film as to what that connection still is, right? Because the movie ends with the dyad, right? Like Wolfie said, between Trinity and Neo, and they're like, you know, more powerful the closer they are to each other. Guys. They're like weird magnets or something like that, I guess. That's how they get their power. Yeah. Well, and when like you said, well, like to your point, I should say, Wolfie, like in the original movies, in spite of how wrong some people might have said they had gone, and indeed, like the last movie, I wasn't a fan. The middle movie's okay. There was a clear connection between the reason for Smith existing as opposed to the reason that Neo existed. In fact, that was the resolution of the film. And that's just not even in here. It's just like, hey, here's Agent Smith, and he's going to say a whole bunch of stuff, and he's going to, you know, do a whole bunch of stuff, and he's going to come in and save the day as like a Deus Ex Machina at the end. But like that's kind of it. I didn't really see a lot of purpose for that in here. What about you, Walt?
Well, I think we're kind of hitting on a point here that maybe needs to be made, and we're not completely making it, you know, and it's not our fault or whatever. But I think what's going on here is the Matrix Resurrections, to me, kind of never felt like a Matrix movie. You know, I think You
that's the
can
point,
you can
right?
look at look at
I mean,
the other three films, right? And as bad as maybe some of those last two films were, maybe they weren't the greatest compared
Yeah.
to the first one, but there was still a feel that you were still in the Matrix, right? That there was still a there was still elements that you can look at and say, okay, I'm watching a Matrix movie. In this particular film, you don't get that sense. The Matrix isn't heavily implied, and the themes that the trilogy was making, you're not even making them in this film because, quite honestly, and again, I hate to point to honest trailers, but the entire point of the movie is for Neo to hook up with Trinity.
Yeah. And that was the entire point of the original
that's
trilogy, kind of, because it was the whole thing that the architect talked about love being the choice that Neo made that the previous ones did not.
Yeah, but
we got there in a better way again, right?
Yeah, it wasn't done as heavy-handed as this film
I don't know
did.
about that. I think it was still heavy-handed, but I think like there was a better series of events to get us there. This movie is just like, he remembers her now. Chad's a total douche and is standing in the way. Chad's no longer in the way. Bullet time.
And it's funny.
She has powers. The end. Like,
because Niobe again makes the point, you're willing to destroy everything just to hook up with Trinity.
Yeah.
And he's basically like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean this does not feel like a Matrix film. I think that's probably one of the biggest thing that is kind of throwing us for a loop here.
Would you say that like ultimately that's what's wrong from your perspective? That's what's wrong with the Matrix with this film. Like,
that's one of many things.
Do you think that's what went wrong? Like, if you could pinpoint it to generally something where you think, like, if you could just pinpoint it to one thing that you think this is why it doesn't work.
But see, I think that's the frustrating part about this film because if you look at things individually, there are things that work, right? There are things that are really cool. But when you mash them together and look at it, from a further point of view, everything falls apart. And the frustrating thing is that it's really hard to pinpoint one single thing because it just.
But I want you to try. I want you to try. I want you to if you
start the proceeding so that let me start because I think I can pinpoint one thing that's wrong.
Well, it's not just that I want everybody to kind of give me an idea of
thing, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I just think we didn't need this.
I just want everybody
thing.
Yeah. So
we didn't need this story.
No, hold on.
This story.
Here's the one thing that I think is the overarching problem with the film in the end and becomes the biggest problem. It's tone. That's the biggest problem with the movie. It's the tone of the film. And I don't think that there's a problem with it being different from the original Matrix movies. I think that could have been great. It's like the difference between Alien and Aliens, right? Those movies are totally different. One's a horror movie, one's a hard sci-fi movie. And, the difference between all of the Aliens movies over time, AJ, you're a huge fan of the Alien series, right?
Yeah.
The tonal differences aren't necessarily a bad thing. It could have been really interesting.
Jose,
but like, hold on.
Here's the difference.
Hold on. Let me just finish my point. Let me just make this point.
Can
I just finish this? I'm almost done with it. Because hold on. Let me just finish the point. I'm almost done. In the end, the problem with the tone is that it's too silly. That's the issue. It's too silly and it's trying to be too self-referential and meta. Those are the tonal problems. That's not the issues that you see in like the Alien films.
I disagree with that on a fundamental level, especially when you're talking about Alien, because Alien and Aliens still felt like they were in the same universe. They still you can make the argument that they went from a survival thing to an action movie with the second one. But the point is they were still set in a universe that was recognizable to the person that watched the first film.
Well, this was totally the same universe too. They refer to the first movie in such
it doesn't feel like
specific
ways
but it doesn't
feel like
that they're trying to get you in that universe, but the tone is what keeps it from being in the same universe.
No. Because you know what? They've basically in this film, they're basically mocking the first three films because you know what? They made it into a freaking video game. And so, you know, you're looking at it from an out of body experience with this film.
Think about how the third movie ends.
100%.
Think about how the third movie ends. What does that Matrix look like? Isn't it sunny and bright and beautiful?
Yeah, but
weird looking.
That's not.
They're still in that universe. That was supposed to be the natural progression of the universe, according to Lana Wachowski. It's still in the universe, but when the hipsters start making fun of the original Matrix movies and they start acting silly and they start saying Matrix F with your head, those specific tonal moments are what break it. Because if it stayed at least sort of tonally similar to the original movies, where it wasn't trying to make fun of everything and there was some at least self-seriousness to the material, then it would have hit a lot better. You didn't need all the same martial arts as the original movies. You could have had fun with some of the ideas of like people turning into zombies. Some of like we said, some of these things could have been interesting, but they were executed in a way tonally that was silly, just like Neo over and over again using the force push. That could have been cool to see a couple of times, but they did it a million times and it started to get silly. That's just my reason why I think the tone is what breaks it. But I mean, what do you guys think? Like, what about you, Wolfie? Like, do you agree with Walt? Do you think that?
I mean, I do agree with Walt because I think that it's not just tone is a problem, but I don't think that I think that there's a very big difference between the tone of the film and the feeling like this is a Matrix film. You know, it's just like the things that make the Matrix feel like the Matrix is while you can have a certain tone of the film, like there's the message that we're trying to get across. What makes the Matrix, and Walt, correct me if I'm wrong, but what makes the Matrix feel like the Matrix is, you know, not just the colorful world that we were left with in the third Matrix, in Revolutions, but the motivations, the heavy-handed philosophy, the feeling that there is some grand, calling, as opposed to I just need to go get my girl back.
That might be part of the problem, and it's not right, because like Lana Wachowski is kind of mad at us, and I will say specifically us, and also the collective us, for trying to tell her what the Matrix is about. I mean, I think that's fairly apparent too in this film, right? It's like, no, the Matrix is not about what anybody thinks it's about. It's what I say it's about, right? I think that's a part
but that's I think that's like in a way, like I understand that you this is your baby, you created and stuff like that, but these are the movies that you created and gave us, and all we can do is interpret them, and not just interpret them, but like read exactly what, like for example, this film, it's telling us. It's essentially what I think. I mean, if I'm going to go into my point, is what I think is what went wrong is that Lana decided to completely deconstruct the legacy that they created in the first three films.
Yeah,
they completely deconstructed everything that we love about the Matrix and said, "You're dumb for enjoying and wanting and loving that original trilogy."
Yeah,
and I think that that's almost like a slap to the face to the viewers that you're supposed to that you created these films for, and I understand, okay, you don't want to make this film, or you're making it as a therapy, session for yourself, whatever the case may be. If you're going to also destroy the reason people are so excited to see your fourth installment, then don't make the film,
I think that's kind of part of the problem too, right? Because the deconstruction of the original Matrix movies could have been interesting. I think we all kind of agree that.
I don't think so. While it could have been interesting, I don't think that. I think that that's
the deconstructing in a mean way is bad, but like that the way that she did it, where it's making fun of us for liking it. But like, why? I don't know if there's anything inherently wrong with deconstructing the philosophy of the film in order to make this one.
Well, so the thing is that when you create a mythos, however you create the mythos, if you whatever story, if you're going to create a story that you've given to the to the human population of society, the ether, you create a story that's beloved and cherished and has changed so many people's lives, in a positive way. you'll be doing a disservice to all those people that have invested a lot of their time in their life, to those stories by then deconstructing it.
Well, hold on.
I think-
I want to ask AJ and Walt's opinion on this, because I think that that's, again, not the right way to look at this. Deconstruction itself is
it
not a
doesn't
bad
matter
thing.
like what the right or the wrong way is.
Well, hold
It's my
on. Think
opinion, it's
about
how
it this
I look
way.
at it.
I want you to just think about it this way, though, right? I mean, you're right. It is in how you look at it. But I'm curious to see what Walt and AJ think about this, because deconstruction, I think, can be a fabulous thing. Think about the Knights of the Old Republic games. Think about The Last Jedi. Those are deconstructions of Star Wars. And
Zack Snyder.
we enjoyed those quite a bit. Because of their deconstructions of Star Wars.
But they didn't destroy
It's not the inherent.
They didn't look at the original.
Well,
trilogy
that's
or
the difference. You're talking about destroying, not deconstructing. Those are two different things. A deconstruction and breaking apart of the philosophy and a deeper look into the philosophy and the themes is great. When you say this philosophy, these themes that you think exist in this movie are wrong and you're dumb, that's the inherent difference in
So I will
deconstruction
say
versus
deconstruct and destroy
destruction,
that.
right?
How about that?
Right.
Deconstruct,
Right?
And destroy.
You know,
can't just
because I like the idea of the meta-ness of this film. I thought that could have been super interesting, and that's a deconstruction of the original.
It was done horribly, though.
That's the thing, right? It was done badly, but it could have been done really well, I think.
It's funny because we should have seen this coming, and
somebody did.
The reason I say this, the reason I say that, what was our reaction after seeing the first trailer for Resurrections? Right, I remember it vividly. I said, "This doesn't feel like the Matrix."
Yeah,
right?
You did say that. You did say that.
It felt totally different. So bully on us for not realizing that was what was going to happen, because she gave it to us straight up on the first trailer. She was like, "This is not going to be the Matrix that you're used to."
Yeah.
And you know what? I think a lot of it, again, it just doesn't feel like the Matrix. We should have known that this was coming. AJ, what do you think? Jump in, because we haven't heard from you in a bit.
Yeah, I think that I agree. There's a very fundamental difference between the original trilogy and what this is supposed to be. Like, at least with the originals, you felt a sense of something epic. Like, there was a grandeur about it. This was just like, okay, here's the world. You're in the world. Let's see where this world goes.
Nobody died.
And I didn't like that.
No stakes. Nobody died, right?
Yeah, there was that too.
That didn't help, I don't think.
I think to what AJ is saying, I think, and what you guys are saying also, and AJ, correct me if I'm wrong, I think deconstructing the Matrix would have worked if you started at a point where you felt like you were in the Matrix, you were like, if the first half of the movie put you in that world, and then slowly you started seeing them peeling away the layers, right? I think that's where you get a better sense of how you move forward within the Matrix and telling a brand new story.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Again, it just comes to, are you going to use a scalpel or are you going to use a hammer? And they definitely went with the hammer.
They went with a jackhammer, I feel like.
They really
a sledgehammer.
And I think it's too jarring,
That's the issue. There was a sort of a funny video I want to mention real quick. I think have you guys ever seen those videos? I can't remember the channel, Pitch Meeting, where they show like a goofy like exchange between two characters on pitch meetings for movies. And they always kind of point out the weird inconsistencies. There's a part where the guy is talking to the other character, and he's like, so yeah, like there was this, civil war between the machines, and they decided to help out humanity, and like humanity decided to move into this new city, and there was this crazy conflict between all of the robots. And the other guy goes like, wow, that would have been a good movie, right? And the guy goes back to him like, yeah. So anyway, this movie, it's like it kind of felt like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they could have done between this movie and between 3 and 4 in the lead up. There's so much interesting stuff that probably happened in the lore, but I guess they couldn't have done the same thing that they did in the Matrix, where they kind of had this reveal that they're in the Matrix again and none of it is real, if we had seen that civil war between the machines. And that's
But we didn't even see how the treaty was broken.
right. That's what I'm saying. Like I would have loved to have seen
They
that.
just went and said, "Oh yeah, well, we didn't honor it." So
and that video makes that point. I would have liked to
all.
have seen that, and they just kind of skipped over that in order
Well,
to
again,
have
this is
that
why I say that there's like
rehash of the original. Yeah,
I think this is why I say that like there is going to be a whole nother trilogy that might be even coming out of this because
No.
no, hear me out. Okay, they left so many open-ended loopholes that you kind of almost don't have a choice. Like they created a bunch of storylines that are not finished at all. Smith is still on the loose at the end of the Matrix. What exactly is Neo and Trinity's new vision for the world in the Matrix? Obviously Io can still be threatened by the machines and
Still
the
is,
machine
right.
civil war. Who are the suits exactly in the Matrix? Because if we have now Neil Patrick Harris, the analyst, he is considered the suits. Then who are they? Like, who do they represent? Are they something completely separate from the faction in the machines, or are they still part of the machines? The faction of the machines that are still against humanity.
Yeah. Who's
Are
his
they
boss?
still part of that faction?
Right? Is it still? Is
We have so many. There's so
there?
many things that were. There's so many things that were left open ended that I think that what this, like I said in the beginning, I feel like okay, we got this film, we got like all the bad ideas out of the way. Now, but there's enough story there to give us a proper Matrix sequel. That's the way that I look at it.
Well,
here's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't care.
No. Well, here's the bigger problem.
I know that you don't. I know you don't
Here's
care.
the bigger problem. Nobody cares because this movie's made $125
Exactly.
million off a $190 million budget. This might just be like one of those things where if they make another one, Warner Brothers will be like, here's $50 million, and it's going to be like a complete trash heap. $125 million. I know it's COVID times, but it probably didn't drive people to HBO Max either to watch this film.
Sometimes
you got to make money.
Budget away. Sometimes when you take budget away, it focuses. It forces you to focus on story. Sure. So that might not be a bad thing.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, but again, like I think that like coming out around No Way Home was a bad idea. Yeah. Coming out around the winter is a bad idea because winter is where movies really do go to die. It's usually where indies come out. MCU notwithstanding. Usually in the winter is when all the indies come out because nobody really goes to the film. So a lot of these studios, they save the big budget blockbuster movies for blockbuster season for a reason. Mm-hmm. Maybe Warner Brothers knew, they saw the film and they were like, we can't release this in the summer blockbuster. That's possible. Maybe they were like, we need to release this very much so, just like Dark Phoenix, mm-hmm. where it's like, we have to release this like in some time where it can just go away.
Maybe,
it could have been a possible business decision, but we've dedicated more than like about 47, well, not about exactly 47 minutes to bashing the movie. Is there anything that went right? Can you guys pinpoint or say or give me something that you think went right with the film?
The credits?
No, come on. I want you to seriously.
No, I'm kidding.
Because the thing is that, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think that we all found some things. There's something in there. Like, it's not a diamond in the rough per se, but there's some sort of shiny mineral in there or small minerals.
It's like for me, kind of like it's a potential problem because I saw more potential. I think the movie. We all knew he was in the Matrix again, right? So I thought that the movie could have had more fun in the Matrix with the idea of messing with us and messing with Neo, whereas like, is he really mentally ill? Were the movies really just a video game? Is he in the Matrix? I think spending more time with that kind of mental struggle would have been fun because I like those scenes. I thought I thought Keanu Reeves was playing that struggle pretty well. I thought he was funny and pretty good in the role. Like even that comment that he made where he was like, so either I'm having a mental breakdown again or I'm being controlled by machine world, or whatever it was, the specific line when he was in therapy with Neil Patrick Harris. And because that's why the final scene, like I said earlier, disappointed me so much, because Neil Patrick Harris's character as the therapist was actually somewhat interesting before he was revealed as the film's ultimate villain, I think. So I think it was a misstep to make him the villain. I thought that there was something fun there. I thought that, and I also thought, and then I'll pass it on to someone else to give some thoughts. I thought that the idea of Yahya Abdul Mateen being a new version of Morpheus could have been way more dope, because I thought that the initial execution of it was very interesting. I feel like it's kind of a cool idea that Neo would kind of create a lifeboat unconsciously, right, in creating this Morpheus in order to lead somebody back to him and help free him again. And like the idea of Morpheus being an amalgam of Agent Smith also, and learning how to become Morpheus again through those two different personalities was pretty cool. Yeah, and there's a couple other things that I enjoyed, but I'm going to pass the torch to somebody else to give some thoughts. What about you, AJ? Is there anything that you liked about the movie? Because you haven't said a single word about anything that you enjoyed at all.
Well, it's like you said. I'm not even gonna lie. I kind of like that whole that whole mental breakdown thing with Neo.
Mhm.
I also, again, highlight for me was just Smith's performance. Like, I thought he was great.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing that I think I liked, which now I'm struggling to remember, and I'm not even being ironic, I'm actually struggling to remember. God. The machine, the conflict with the machines. Like, I kind of liked that idea that instead of them just going, "Oh, we're gonna have I like that the machines don't have as much, the idea that they don't have as much of a uniformity that we initially thought they did.
Yeah.
Like, once the food started getting dry, okay, I did not expect them to start like fighting each other. So that was interesting. And then to see from that the further divide, that there were machines that were actually like, maybe we should go vegan. That was actually kind of interesting. I will give the movie that.
Vegan machines. That's a good way to put it, I think. Yeah.
I think that, like, as far as for me, some of the things that it did well was create actually, to kind of piggyback onto AJ's point, yeah, I really like the idea of creating that dissension and conflict within the machines, because that's something that we didn't have before, that I really would have liked to have seen them explored this time, where yeah, the decisions that they made at the end of the Matrix, from the machine standpoint, it was beneficial to the humans, but we don't know what conflicts might have arisen from there, and I would have liked to seen that more, that hashed out a little bit more, and so I think that was done well. I think that the idea of showing that Neo's original sacrifice wasn't for nothing, that it did create a better world, so to speak. It's just that just because you created a better world doesn't mean that conflict doesn't automatically arise. So I think that there were a lot of little things that were done well. I do really like Abdul Mateen as Morpheus. I like the idea of Morpheus essentially being a fusion of actually, this goes to one of the big things that I really like. It's the cooperation between machines and the humans. One of my favorite moments in the film was when Neo first saw these like mini animalistic sentinels, and the machines, they weren't just machines. You could see that they had feelings, and they sensed the connection with Neo. They too revered Neo and would sacrifice themselves for Neo. And I loved seeing that. I loved seeing um, the machines having essentially, so, in for lack of a better term, souls. Um, and I think that would set up a really wonderful world where we would see machines sacrificing themselves, in the future. And I could see, in a future expansion of the Matrix, this Morpheus actually sacrificing himself for Neo, because he's a machine and he's not just like this human character. And one of the things that I thought that they did really well with him is that they made him more machine than they made him human, in the sense that he was very rough with Neo in his interactions and stuff, and he was showing that, like, I'm not a human, and I'm not with the machines either, but I'm my own. I'm a machine that has their own true sentient ideas, and I really like that.
I don't think anybody had more fun on this film than Yahya Abdul Mateen. He looked like he was
Probably
having
because
a lot of fun.
he was Lana's direct representation in the film. All he did was poke fun at the original trilogy, like this, that, blah blah blah, red pill, blue pill. Like, and that's kind of what I hated so much. Is like I mean, there's an actual Matrix religion out there, called Matrixism. I mean, I think it's ridiculous, but that's how strong that original film was. And now it's like, we like memes, and even in jiu-jitsu, it's like, if you're a guard pull or a takedown, which are you, like red pill, blue pill? Like, we use it in many different ways, and now it's just a joke, so. But anyway, we're talking about good things, not bad things. So, well, anything? I mean, I know that you said the credits. We already got AJ's, and everyone's opinion. But anything else that we want to add?
Yeah, I was kidding about the credits. It wasn't as bad as some other films are out there.
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly. One interesting thing that we're talking about, Yahya Abdul Mateen's character. At the very beginning, they referenced him as Agent Smith, which I found very, very interesting. And they never went back to it. I wanted to find out why they were referencing him in that fashion. Was it a FU to Morpheus and whatnot? I don't know. His take on Morpheus was definitely interesting, and I vacillate between whether I like his take and whether I don't. And for right now, I'm kind of cool with the way he did it, because you know what, he is the one guy in the entire film that had really his own different take on the character. And Jonathan Groff did also and whatnot, but that, that's, we won't get into that. I've already said how I liked his character. To piggyback on something that I didn't like, but I did like at the beginning, I liked the interaction at the very beginning between Neo and Morpheus. I liked that Morpheus wasn't holding his hand. I liked the fact that Morpheus was like, dude, we've done this already before. You just get with the program and let's go. You're wasting my time with this whole existential type of thing. Just take the damn pill and let's move on, right? And I like that little scene in that dojo by the lake. Yeah. And again, those are the things that, while I like that and I like the choreography to that, that's the thing that drives me nuts later in the film, because we never got back to that level of accomplishment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With that thing. I don't know if Yahya Abdul Mateen is an accomplished martial artist, and maybe there was a stand-in for him, but a lot of he was doing that wushu kung fu style, right?
He was doing actually it was a mix between kung fu and capoeira, which is really dope.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. And so I like that whole thing. I like that particular scene, how they did that fight, and it was kind of reminiscent of the first interaction that they had when they went into the fight sequence in the first movie, where it's like, you're better than this, right? And he had to kind of shake.
He's trying to wake him up. He's trying to wake up the inner Neo. He's trying to wake up Neo from Thomas Anderson.
Exactly. So I
And just
like that piece right
real
there.
quick on the fight choreography, just because I wanted to bring it up way earlier when we were talking about fight choreography, I actually thought that the fight between Neo and the new Smith, I thought that fight was good, even though it was in a lot of ways a mirror of the final fight between them in the
Yeah.
original Matrix. I thought the choreography in that was pretty good. It
Yeah,
just sucks that
and
that was the
again,
last fight that we got.
exactly. That's the frustrating part, and the other thing, waiting for Trinity to wake up 2 hours into the film,
Oh my god.
you know. But
Oh, there's
like I
yeah.
said, there are little moments that I can appreciate from the film. It just, in the grander scheme of things, it makes it difficult when you're trying to piece them together because they don't work, you know. But again, there were some things I liked.
Yeah.
Just putting it
But
out
I
there.
think
There were some things I liked.
you just kind of asked. I just want to mention. I think that it was the reason that he was kind of Agent Smith. Also, is that Neo was trying to kind of introduce both of his mentors in a sense, because Morpheus was like a mentor to him, and I think Agent Smith was like a mentor to him as well. If you look at the original trilogy, they were kind of mentoring each other on like how to get their goals, I guess, in the original film. So I think that there was a part of that maybe in why he was written to be Smith Morpheus or Morpheus Smith or whatever that is. I gotta ask a random question. Why was Christina Ricci in this movie? Do you guys remember she was in the movie for like 30 seconds in that one scene?
Yeah, and the part that I hated the most. She was the best part of the part that I hated the most, but
why get such
I don't
a top billed actor to be in a movie for 30 seconds?
You said there was someone from Doctor Who, but
Oh yeah,
Who
there was a girl from Doctor Who in that meeting also.
Oh,
Nora Jones, Nora Smith.
I
Character
guess
in Doctor Who. I don't know. Whatever.
all right.
It's just rando appearances that people just jumped in and like, hey.
But then also you had Chad
I'll come in for that.
Stahelski. Yeah, Chad Stahelski would just be
That was a good
but
part.
that wasn't that random. That wasn't that random because he was actually Reeves' stunt double in the first film.
Yeah, and he's the director of all the John Wick
Yeah.
films, right? Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, I
been
think that
friends for a
just
while, I guess.
happens to be. I think that just happens to be like a coincidence. Although before, when it was first announced, before we even got the trailer, I thought that like, what if, because John Wick 4 was supposed to come out at the same day, and I was like,
that.
oh my god, what if John Wick 4 is the new Matrix? What if that is the Matrix? Which
That would have been
actually would have
dope.
made sense in a way.
That would have been
That would have
really
made
dope.
sense.
You know what would have been cool?
You know,
like
that would've been crazy.
somebody had this theory. If they had gone in this direction, it was similar to the direction that they went. I think it was Film Theory, the YouTube channel, that said it would be really cool if in this movie Neo was Keanu Reeves, the actor who played
I don't want
in the
any more.
originals. But that would tie it to John Wick if you think about it. That could be like,
In
oh,
a
this
sense,
guy
but
like
actually,
plays
you
all
wonder
these
what would've been better?
characters, but he's actually
You know what
in the
would have been
Matrix.
better? You know what would have been better? If the John Wick movies were actually the video game that Thomas Anderson created.
That would have been a cool little Easter egg too. You know what I mean?
That would have been really cool.
I want to mention one more thing that I liked about this movie that was sad to me, because it's once again like the really talented actor Jessica Henwick is an awesome character stuck in a bad property, just like she was in Iron Fist. Bugs. I thought Bugs was actually a pretty good character, and her martial arts skills are pretty dope. Especially when you guys
I'm
like
singular.
What's that?
No, I'm saying I'm a singular. I'm the singled out person because I actually liked Iron Fist.
You like, well, the first season was not great. The second season was better, I think. But like her character, I think, was universally loved from that show, and like, you know, she was one of the high points. And it's unfortunate to me that a good actor and a good character kind of gets wasted again in this film, even though like, well, I guess gets wasted because of what AJ said, right? That she's like the stand-in for WB. It's like, oh, that's almost not fair.
You know why she made the film, right?
Why she made the film?
She had a choice.
What do you?
She had a choice between roles.
Between this and what?
And playing a character in Shang-Chi.
Oh,
really?
Man!
But listen,
she thought you would probably get the star billing from this one, though, right? Because she was one of the top
no. That's not the reason why she did it. The reason why she chose Resurrections over Shang-Chi was she's still hopeful that she can play the character that she played in Iron Fist.
Yeah.
So if she went into Shang-Chi as another character,
Wouldn't do that anymore.
then
Makes sense.
she can't. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
see.
the reason why she ended up going into the Matrix Resurrections.
And
So
super random thing about Jessica Henwick very quickly. Do you know that she also did not know martial arts before Iron Fist, just like the main character? Just like Finn
Yeah, I
Jones?
believe she's
They
I
both
believe
learned.
she's yeah.
That's pretty
She has
amazing.
like a dancing background.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it, though, because everybody was talking about how Finn Jones just didn't get it, and she was in the same boat, and she was so good at it. But like Wolfie said, it was
But
probably
you know
the
what?
dancing background.
Yeah, exactly. I was
Right.
about to say that dancing
Helps.
kind of helps. You know.
Yeah.
All right.
So
All right.
Anyway, all right. So that's I think that pretty much sums it up. We definitely harped quite a bit on what we all thought went wrong. But there's a few good things that quite roughly came out of the movie. I do still think that anybody that's anybody in the Matrix or has any kind of emotional investment into the films should still watch this, even though we're telling you it's a bad movie, but you should still watch it because it does sort of, and agree to disagree, it does expand the lore. It is part of it. So you kind of, for better or worse, have to watch it.
I'm just
Kind of like
Well,
Star
it
Wars.
needs to stop
I'm
here.
fascinated by what it tried to do. Honestly, that's why I wanted to have this conversation. Do we
So-
want to even go as far as rating this movie? I'm
No.
kinda
It's
No, no, no.
unrateable.
I'm curious.
There's no reason
though.
to rate
Can
it.
we talk about it
No, no.
offline? Like, do you like? I want to know what y'all rate this film. We don't have to put this on the podcast, but I'm curious about that. We'll move on.
I
from
mean,
that now.
So is our next episode what went wrong with Boba Fett?
whoa. First of all, the show's not done yet, and second of all, it's one episode that's a little bit above mediocre. If you go, it's one episode because the first two episodes were good. So I don't want to hear it. Okay, the first two episodes are really good. The third episode is just above average if you go by online reviews, rating, and my own personal take. So leave your cynicism for the Positively Cynical podcast if you want.
That's
okay?
mine. You can come talk about it on my podcast if you want.
See,
Jesus.
we just gave you a sample of our next episode, right?
I'm gonna come guns a-blazing, okay? Gonna come guns a-blazing.
I think we should save that for the end of the season because that'll be
No, I'm
epicest
kidding.
battle of all time.
I figured that was a good way to end this podcast.
That's
Just
why.
throwing Boba Fett a little
It's
shade.
going to be so epic.
Ha.
I made up a word. Epicest. All right. Let's close this one out then. As Walt said at the jump, the best way to support your favorite podcasts, because we got a few. We got the Get Geek podcast. We got the Cross Gen podcast. Check that out with Walt and the boys, AJ and Eli. We got the Arena. Brand new. You guys are on episode 3 now, right? This past week. You'll be on episode 4. Wolfie and Walt.
Yeah, episode 4 coming up.
Your dope sports podcast, and of course myself with my self-plug, Positively Cynical podcast. You can find them where all your favorite podcasts are sold. You can check them out on all your favorite social media platforms. Like, rate, share, and subscribe. And definitely check out Talons55 Studios on Instagram, where you can find all of these podcasts, all the information, all the posts, and all the social media stuff that you need for them. Thanks for joining us once again on another awesome episode of the Get Geek podcast. And stay geeky, my friends.
Peace.
Let it die.
Oh my god, I'm gonna cut your legs off.
Whoa.